Hi, I'm Colin.
And I'm Phil.
We're the hosts of Science Fiction 101.
It's a show which gets to the heart of science fiction. Books, films, TV. We've covered Star Trek,
Doctor Who,
Star Wars.
We love to explore the past, present, and future of science fiction.
And we'd love for you to join us
on Science Fiction 101.
Hello, Colin.
Hello, Phil.
We're recording in July 2026, and here in the UK, we've had record-breaking high temperatures for 3 months in a row, pretty much.
Continuously or broken?
Usually with about a week's break in between. So we get a little bit of respite, but I don't think it's rained for about a month now, which is very unusual in the UK. How's it been where you are?
We're actually having a slightly cooler than normal summer, but it's been extremely dry. Mm-hmm. There are multiple wildfires all across the state of Oregon, and actually throughout the West and up into Canada. In fact, the Canada smoke is so bad that they've been moving sporting events from the Midwest, the Chicago area, to here in Portland. So we've been hosting sporting events that we don't normally get. Wow. Yeah. The fires are not a completely new thing, but the duration and severity of the fires is pretty unusual. So a little of my background, my father was a logger. His job was to cut down trees. Okay. And when it got too warm, the Forest Service would force them to shut down so that there weren't people out in the forest where it was very dry, far from lots of resources, where a stray spark from an engine or a saw or a person who was smoking might start a fire. So then there was no income during those times. And the solution to that was most of the loggers would then become substitute firefighters. So we always hoped for really wet winters so that they wouldn't shut down because, firefighting's a dangerous task.
I've seen some of the smoke ash in Chicago. So I'm aware that the US is being affected by what's happening in Canada. And I was wondering whether it had reached you as well over on the west.
Between our fires and the Washington fires to the north of us and the Canadian fires, there's wildfire smoke covering a significant portion of the United States. Wow. And that's actually, Google Maps has a wildfire overlay.
Oh.
So you can turn it on. It will tell you the location of all established fires that have been reported. And then it will actually show you extent of smoke and density.
Wow. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I used that 2 weeks ago.
And did you find it was accurate?
Yes. Yeah. I was on a little mini vacation with my wife, and we were in Southern Oregon, and there's a town called Ashland that hosts a Shakespeare festival. It's kind of nationally known. And in the middle of a performance of The Taming of the Shrew, my phone went off with an evacuation alert.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm thinking, I'm not from these parts. I don't know how things work or where things are like I do here at home. I had my son pull open the Google Maps fire layer, and he said, oh, yeah, you're miles and miles from it. We never figured out why Google sent me that. Yeah. A little bit of excitement.
In the middle of Shakespeare. Fantastic. So, because it is so warm here, there, and everywhere, we figured that we might talk about things that have something to do with climate change. And so we're going to talk about 2 films, and we haven't chosen these because they're the best films ever made, although I think one of them is pretty good.
Yes.
But we've chosen them because they've got something to do with climate change. And they're from different times, but they're from a time when really climate change wasn't a thing. It existed, it was known about maybe, but it wasn't in the headlines every time you turned on the news. I thought it would be interesting to take a look at how people used to think climate change might happen and maybe compare it to the reality that we're witnessing on a daily basis. We've got 2 films. Colin, you nominated one which I'd never seen before, so would you like to introduce that one?
Yes, and I'm going to apologize again for asking you to watch this because I had forgotten just how... It does talk about climate change, but there's really not much more of a movie to it than that. It's the movie Arrival, and it stars Charlie Sheen.
Just to be absolutely clear, this is not Arrival by Denis Villeneuve. This is The Arrival by David Twohy, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
had done a number of good movies. I'm
Hmm.
not sure what happened with this one, but yeah. Although it actually reviews fairly well. On Rotten Tomatoes, it holds a rating of 66%.
Yes, which is better than several of his other films.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not talking about Charlie Sheen when you say that. So, so the premise of The Arrival is that the world is warm, and it seems to be getting warmer, and no one's paying a lot of attention to it. It's not a big thing. It's just might be a seasonal thing. And our main character, Zane Zeminski, who is a radio astronomer, intercepts a signal. It looks like the signal, the one that might indicate finally another non-terrestrial intelligence. But as he goes to report it, his boss kind of poo-poos it. His co-worker is let go. Zane is fired outright. There appears to be this effort to stop and slow everything down. And as this is going on, he begins to realize that he's being followed. His house is searched. His girlfriend is acting kind of weird, like wanting to be there with him, but then being, critical of him. He tracks, I don't even remember how he got down to Mexico, but they get down to Mexico, and where he finds out there's a business that is interfering or collaborating with a radio station that happens to be using the same frequency because they were checking the FM band for alien signals. And if I sound like I'm struggling to explain this, it's because it's difficult to explain in levels of detail. But it turns out that aliens are the reason for global climate change. They're looking to terraform the Earth to be more palatable for their species. They're hiding among us in customized Edgar suits, if you remember that Men in Black line, and trying to keep it as quiet as they can, because once you get past a certain point, there's no stopping the change, right? It's kind of like the limit to 2 Celsius change by limiting carbon. They're trying to pump it up by releasing carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere to thicken it to hold more heat in, so that it will melt the ice poles on the north and the south, and which will also thicken the atmosphere, and then it'll be not in runaway, but it'll be well established that it's not going to go back to the old climate.
Yeah. So it is science fiction, but the science is a little bit dodgy.
I think the core idea of the terraforming, I think that's pretty solid. In fact, this is all introduced, interestingly, in a discussion about how we might try and terraform Mars.
Yeah.
To make it suitable for humans. It's just that it's being done to the Earth as we're on it. So it's objectionable. It's not a super high quality movie. It's a fun time if you want to spend a Sunday afternoon. It's not worth renting. I think for me, where it jumped off the rails was the black hole bomb. The little sphere which spins around and...
Yeah, I didn't really understand that.
Yeah, it'll empty the contents of a room, and it will damage a radio telescope, but it won't do anything if it's a wood-chased room with a floor in an attic. Just kind of cleans it out.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really get that. What it has got is aliens taking over people. So it's a bit of a throwback to 1950s movies, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that kind of thing. And one of the things that the main character notices is that there's a character, a very minor character down in Mexico, who looks exactly the same as a person that he's met in his hometown, wherever that is.
His boss.
Yeah, that's it. And he puts 2 and 2 together and figures out it must be aliens. There's no other explanation for it. So it seemed to me, watching the film, it starts off as if it's going to be about climate change, because we see is it the North Pole or the South Pole? We see the ice sheets, the Arctic or Antarctic, and in the middle of it, there's this green patch with grass and flowers and trees. And I thought that was a very striking image and a nice way of setting up a sort of a climate change mystery. But then they start throwing everything at it. Oh no, it's SETI. Oh no, it's alien invasion. Oh, they're stealing our bodies and pretending to be us. And to cap it all, the aliens have knees that go backwards. Their legs fold the wrong way.
Yes. Yeah.
Quite nice. I guess that was CGI, but...
Oh, it had to be.
Had to be, didn't it? But 1996, for a low-budget film, it seemed quite an extravagant technique.
I thought it was a great way to reveal the aliens. One way is when they show up and try and shoot you, because
Yeah.
it was humans versus the aliens. But yeah, the other way is if he corners this one guy that's been following him through the Mexican town, and he turns around and the guy, I call it cracking his knees. So it goes from convex to concave.
Yeah.
And then he jumps 25 feet to escape.
Yeah. Which is a smart move.
I'd like to jump 25 feet in the air. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. 1 foot would be good for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you in terms of figuring out the plot, and this is where we're going to go full spoilers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All the way through, because you've seen other alien invasion movies, you're thinking somebody here is going to turn out to be an alien. And really, there's only 2 candidates. There's the boss, who is identical to this other figure down in Mexico, but that's the villain, if you like. But it seems obvious that somebody else is going to turn out to be an alien without our ever guessing that they were an alien. And really, there's only 2 possibilities there. One is the girlfriend, and the other one is the little kid who just turns up and starts, I don't know, helping him do his radio astronomy. This kid comes from nowhere and doesn't seem to serve much of a plot purpose. But right at the end, lo and behold, his knees go the wrong way and, oh, he's an alien.
Yeah, I think he also lets people into the radio telescope, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. You're right. He enables the other aliens to get in. So, yeah, so he's been doing some evil deeds along the way without us knowing. There's one thing, in all seriousness, that I did like about the film is its portrayal of SETI, so searching for ETs using radio telescopes. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very weird that I'd never seen this film and never heard of it. But when I looked up the years and the timing, I saw that less than a year later, Contact came out, which is all about SETI. Jodie Foster is the radio astronomer, and it's done, I think, with more scientific acumen than this film has. And it occurs to me that those 2 films coming out around the same time, even if I had seen this one or heard of this one, I think it would have been blocked out in my memory by Contact, which is a better film and a more serious attempt to show SETI. But I did like the way that SETI is portrayed here. And there's one thing that I really loved, even though it's preposterous, is that when the radio astronomer gets fired, he takes a second job as a satellite TV installer, and he goes around to all his customers, wangles his way in so that he can mess with their satellite dishes, and he rigs them all up to make a colossal radio telescope, which is brilliant. He's able to turn all these satellite dishes so that they're all pointing in the right direction, and he's able to carry on his astronomy work using domestic satellite dishes. And yeah. I thought that was delicious and ridiculous at the same time.
It's the opposite of Contact. In Contact, they get this alien signal with instructions to build the machine.
Oh, yes.
And so all of the governments of the world collaborate to do this. On the flip side, you have this guy that is stealing your neighbor's satellite dishes to make his VLA to try and find the signal again. And
yeah, but that's very good. Just going back to the climate change aspect of this film, we've said it's terraforming, and that's the word that's used in the film itself. But it occurs to me that terraforming is making something like the Earth. So we terraform Mars. But if you're doing it to the Earth, that's not really terraforming, is it? That should be called something else. And I don't know what it's called. I think I've heard xenoforming, possibly.
Yeah.
That might be it, or that might just be a word that somebody made up in one of the reviews that I saw of the film.
Mm.
But an interesting idea that aliens would modify our planet to suit their needs. But how do you think that fits in with our sort of real world experience of climate change and global warming? Do you think this film is trying to tap into what little we knew in 1996? Or is it just grabbing something from the headlines and then running in a different direction with it? What is it really doing?
If it was going to be climate fiction, I would say it's climate fiction light. You know, it's getting hotter and we're less comfortable. And It's ascribing an external reason for the rate of climate change, because we know that over the last really 30 years, this movie's from 1996, predictions for climate change over those 30 years and the actual climate change differ quite a bit. We've seen climate change at a global scale, just not as rapid or as severe as predicted. And so this is ascribing a motive to climate change, saying that there's an alien soliloquy which says, we're only accelerating what you humans started. And then there's another mention slightly earlier in the movie where he's trying to figure out, where in the world did the aliens get the money to build this? And the answer was venture capital, which means that for sufficient financial return, our societies across the planet are willing to do some pretty damaging things to the planet we live on.
Yeah. So do you think that is a message then? Do you think the film is trying to give us a message?
I don't think it's very good at doing any of those things, to be quite honest. If they were to lean onto one or the other, it might have been a better movie. But yeah, it's just kind of a mishmash. I was struggling to try and pull things out of it, aside from the fact, it's hot. Everyone says it's hot. Everyone looks hot except for the aliens, who I don't think sweat. Yeah. See, now if we were doing this as a video podcast, we would find some way to insert that famous History Channel meme. It's aliens.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Yeah. Should we move on to my suggested film, which is The Day the Earth Caught Fire from 1961. So we're going way back, I think, before anyone suggested that we have been heating our planet or doing permanent damage to it. It's a British film. It's directed and co-written by Val Guest, who had previously directed 2 Quatermass films, and he went on to produce and direct many other films after this. He's quite a stalwart of the British film industry, not usually considered much of an artist, but more a sort of a workaday filmmaker. But this is probably his best film. It's certainly his most personally motivated film, because he originated it, wrote the first draft script, directed it, and produced it. If we have anyone close to being an auteur in 1961 British cinema, that would be it, really. It's called The Day the Earth Caught Fire, which is a sort of almost like a tabloid headline of a title, because it's not really about the Earth catching fire, but it is about the Earth getting really hot. And as it turns out, the reason for it is that atomic bombs have been set off, 2 almost simultaneously in different parts of the world, and it's caused the Earth to, well, at first they think it's tilted on its axis. They later discover that the Earth's orbit has tilted, and not only that, the Earth is moving closer to the sun. If you think of all the things you could do to the Earth to warm it up, apart from heating up the atmosphere, this film throws them all in there. And I guess that's all they could think of back in 1961, is that you have to move the Earth in relation to the sun in some way. The Earth gets gradually hotter and hotter. The water evaporates. Water rationing is introduced. Mostly what we see in the film is in the UK, and it's focused on a journalist and a newspaper. And that, I think, is what makes this film distinctive. It's not about a scientist who discovers this stuff. It's about an alcoholic, a journalist who kind of is at the end of his tether, is really bored with his job, is getting very clumsy in his job because of his drinking, and it's all because his wife has left him. So it's a soap opera in terms of the foreground story, but what's going on in the background is that the world is getting worse and worse. It's a low-budget film, made in black and white, except the beginning and ends. I don't know if the version you saw, Colin, but the beginning and end of the film are tinted sort of yellow, goldy colour. Did you get a tinted version as well?
Yeah, although mine looked red.
Oh, interesting. Because it was shot in black and white and released in black and white, but the first and last reels of the film were printed with this tint And in the restored version that the British Film Institute oversaw a couple of years ago, they went to great lengths to make sure they were getting the tint correct in terms of what was originally intended. And I think if you've seen a red one, that's probably an old print where the tint has faded and discoloured. But in the restored version, it's this sort of yellow golden tint. And the reason for that is the film begins just as the world is coming to an end.
Yes.
It's really, really hot, and we see the reporter phoning in his final story, basically. And that's why the footage is tinted yellow. And then as he tells the story, we flash back and everything goes black and white, which is how the world used to look before tints were invented. And then at the end, we come back to that same point where he's phoning in his final story. I don't know how you found it, but I find it an immensely funny film. It's not a comedy by any means, but the dialogue is quite witty and sparkling in its wit. And yet the subject matter is so deadly serious. And the last thing I'll say about it is that it tries to accurately portray what it's really like in a newspaper back in 1961. So from today's standpoint, it looks rather old-fashioned, but it was really attempting to reflect what a real newsroom would have looked like. And indeed, they built the newsroom in the film based on photographs and measurements from the real Daily Express. And the chief editor in the film is somebody who, in real life, had been the editor of the Daily Express. So they went to quite some trouble with that. And I think this is a classic British film, one of the best British science fiction films, but I'd be very interested to know what you made of it.
I really enjoyed it. At first I thought, I'm looking at a 1960s movie and it's a slightly different pace than modern movies, but it immediately reminded me of Aaron Sorkin written movies. This walking, talking, really sharp, sparkling, sarcastic dialogue in a lot of ways. I keep thinking of how sharp it was and how glib the people seemed, except for the editor. But he's an editor. He's a slow, thoughtful, leadership style kind of guy. Yeah. And if he used to be a newspaper editor, he was probably not an actor his whole life.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm curious, at the end of the movie, did you hear bells?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Did you?
I did. According to Wikipedia, that was something that was only added to the American version. Oh. And people think it might be a throwback to the War of the Worlds, where they're celebrating the success of stopping the alien invasion.
Interesting.
They try and stop the spiraling of the Earth toward the sun before all known life in the universe is destroyed. So they run this experiment, and we never learn the results of the experiment. In fact, the screenwriter and director mentioned that he wanted to leave it as ambiguous.
Right.
So the other thing it reminded me of was On the Beach, the Australian science fiction post-apocalyptic story. In that, if I've watched some movies from that era made in the United States, and they're solely focused on the political ramifications of someone starting a war, it's interesting to me, and maybe it's just a limitation of my experience, that the movies I've seen about nuclear war from other countries are all about how the world suffers from the actions of the United States and Russia back in the day.
Yeah. Yes.
So here we are in Britain. The climate is rapidly, extremely changing, and it's because of these two experiments, and it's all trying to be kept hush-hush because they don't want people to panic, when in reality, people should know so they can make decisions about how to adjust this and adapt to it.
Yeah. In a way, historically, that's a little bit disingenuous of Britain to make a film of that nature, because we had the bomb as well. But there was a big anti-nuclear campaign in this country, and it's in the film. There is footage of a real CND protest, which is a mixture of documentary footage and staged scenes specifically for the film. So it is a bit of a protest, but that would have been a protest against British bombs as well as American and Russian ones. But in terms of the plot, you're absolutely right. It's the Russians and the Americans who've set off these two hydrogen bombs at the same time at opposite ends of the Earth that have caused it to shift. I thought you were going to refer to On the Beach being very much a gloomy ending because we know everyone is going to die, whereas this one holds out the possibility that the attempt to fix the problem may have been successful at the end, even though we're not shown it.
So, this activated the science in me. So I'm thinking, okay, if it takes two big explosions to get it going toward the sun,
Yeah.
it's going to take more than two to try and stop it. So they set off four. So they're going to have to do this all again in order to stop it from spiraling outwards now because there's too much impulse. It's just,
Yeah, it doesn't really stand up to scrutiny, I don't think. And
No.
you might end up with a Space 1999 situation where you end up being flung out of the solar system.
Oh, yeah.
But I think all of that stuff, because it all is filtered through these journalists, it doesn't matter that the science isn't right because they don't totally understand it either. There's one reporter there who is the science guy, and he seems to understand most things. People will just say one word to him and he'll instantly know, oh my God, that means this, because, he's the science correspondent. But really, they're just receiving information from third parties and they're figuring out what's going on, partly because they're good journalists and partly because they keep asking probing questions of the right people. And of course, everyone's trying to cover it up and deny that anything's gone wrong and all of that. But they keep pestering these key scientists who really would know, but they're not talking.
And not supposed to talk.
Oh, indeed, yes, they're being prevented from talking. It reminded me a little bit of All the President's Men, the film about Watergate.
Yeah.
Because that is about how important journalists are to our democracy, and they're the defenders of truth and everything. Whereas from today's standpoint, I don't know about you, but most of us, I think, look at journalists and laugh because of they either don't know what they're writing about or they're making stuff up because they have an agenda. That seems to be how we view journalists nowadays. But back in the day, everything was ripe for showing journalists as being these guardians of truth and revealers of truth, which I think is interesting, but it's a precursor to All the President's Men, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there were some very, I guess, heroic kind of things that journalists did. I mean, covering the Vietnam War and the protests and Watergate. And those are just the United States-centric things that I know about. Nowadays, with the newspapers and news outlets being bought by oligarchs, there's a lot of questions about, the true ability of them to be the fourth estate.
Yeah. Just going back to the climate change aspect again, forget about the scientific explanation of what's going on. Just thinking in terms of how the film represents the change in climate. Were you convinced by that? Did you find it a bit hokey because it's an old-fashioned film? How did you feel about the convincingness of the change in climate itself?
It's interesting to me that it takes a truly radical event in order for the impact of the climate change to truly be recognized. So it's getting hotter. It's getting a lot hotter. Boy, it's hot all the time. But it's not until the gigantic wall of fog rolls in. And I like that even then there's some doubt injected. So they're talking about, well, it could have been this, it could have been that. It could have been a huge injection of cold water coming from the poles melting and mixing, which causes this, immediate huge layer of fog. But yeah, to me, I think that's the wake-up call. It's like, no, we're definitely outside the realm of normal weather variation at this point.
Yes. And one of the things that people say about how things are portrayed in the film is that it is drawing on some of the imagery from World War II. So during World War II, obviously, London was blitzed.
Right.
Things were rationed. I don't know that water was rationed particularly, but food was rationed. Everything, furniture, clothing, everything was rationed. And people could only buy what their ration book allowed them to buy. And in this film, we see water being rationed and people queuing up to get their share of the water or to have their free bath or whatever it is. So even though this is from 1961, it seems to be using imagery from 15, 16 years earlier which was World War II. And the final image of the film is St. Paul's Cathedral, which famously survived the Blitz. And in fact, we talked about this. You remember when we reviewed the Connie Willis story that was set during the Blitz? That was set on the roof of St. Paul's. So that's what is the final image in this film. And it's kind of a symbol of England making it through the Blitz, because although lots of London was bombed and St. Paul's was bombed, it survived. And there it is at the end of the film, standing there, even though everyone's dying and the River Thames has evaporated and all of that.
Yeah. The shot where they show like the riverbed of the Thames, that was shocking.
Yes. Some really nice images in there, I think. And it's probably for the best that it was made in black and white. Those images can be a bit more convincing and harrowing because they are black and white. If that was shot in colour, I think those images would have been very unconvincing. There's quite a few paintings in there, for example, and a bit of model work. And some of the backgrounds are cardboard cutouts with other things placed in front of them to make them sort of look three-dimensional. And I think you can get away with quite a bit in black and white that you wouldn't be able to if you did it with full colour.
You were kind of talking about the cutouts, and earlier you mentioned it was kind of low budget. I was shocked to see the note that it cost £190,000 to make in 1961. And by 1973, it had showed a profit of £22,000. So 12 years later, it seemingly broke even.
Wow.
And it was mentioned that this was considered a financial success for British films at the time.
Wow, that's amazing. I thought you were going to say that you'd calculated what that is worth today. So I'm going to do that now.
Okay.
How much did it cost?
I think I said £190,000.
190,000.
I don't think it's a factor of 10, but it's got to be bigger than 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of £3.8 million today.
Oh, much stronger than I thought. Wow.
Which is peanuts by today's movie standards.
It is.
That's a budget of a TV show, really. A high-end TV show.
Well, and for like the Star Wars television shows, I think that's less than the per episode budget.
Wow.
Very expensive.
So on the basis of these two films, what can we conclude?
I would say that the consensus is that climate change is at least human mediated or intelligent mediated in the case of The Arrival. And that a lot of people are, I was going to say they're like unaccepting of the change. But in the case of The Day the Earth Caught Fire, the change is so extreme that everyone has to accept it. Yeah. And it's being widely communicated. There's no questioning it. In The Arrival, it's a little more of the frog getting cooked in the boiling water scenario.
Yeah.
It's happening slowly. It's happening not as slowly as it would just by the damage that the humans are doing to their own planet. It's being accelerated by the aliens. But it's still acceptable.
Yeah. And of course, most people in The Arrival are totally oblivious. They might feel the warming a little bit, but they don't know about the alien takeover until our hero exposes it, basically. In The Day the Earth Caught Fire, I think it's obvious to everyone that the world is changing. And in the end, people start going a bit mad. We see those sort of beatniks who start throwing water over each other at the end, which is counterproductive behaviour, but they figure it's the end of the world, whatever. But I think both films indicate that there are cover-ups going on. Both films are indicating that the truth will out. But I think in terms of climate change, the thing that strikes me most is that both of these films kind of indicate that we only notice things that are dramatic. So the frog in the boiling water scenario is more realistic in the sense that we don't notice this on a daily basis. Many people in real life still don't accept that climate change is happening, even though it obviously is, because every expert on the planet says it is. And in the case of The Day the Earth Caught Fire, you couldn't really do a film about the Earth slowly warming up. You have to say the Earth has slipped on its axis. You have to make it inherently dramatic for it to work as a film. There's no other way of doing it, really, because films are about moments of change. And the problem with real life climate change is it's so slow. I
Yeah.
mean, it's fast historically, but it's slow within our lifetimes. We don't really notice from one day to the next. What films could we have chosen? What other films could we have looked at, do you think?
Global climate change. The I can't think of another film off the top of my head, but the first thing I thought of, and I mentioned this, was the book State of Fear by Michael Crichton.
Yes.
And I think that came out in the 2000s. And
Hmm.
Michael Crichton is famous for doing science-based works. And that's what this starts off being. But it's actually an indictment against human-mediated climate change. He had done a bunch of research on his own, and presumably it was is pretty well done research. At the end of the book, there's like a 26-page essay where he lays it all out, and it ends up with the general sentiment of we shouldn't politicize science. And I think there's some truth to that. But I think we want science to inform politics and government policies. Otherwise, you have what's happening here in the United States, where they dismantled the monitoring of food-based contagions, and now we have independent outbreaks of cyclosporia infestations literally across the United States. The incubation time is long enough, it's difficult to track, and there aren't enough resources to do it well now at the national level. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And that's just one example, because there are more.
Yeah. I think the saddest thing about State of Fear is that it turned out to be anti-climate change, which is a shame because Crichton has enormous influence because his books are so widely read. And I imagine that one is still widely read, and people will assume that it is based on science because most of his books are at some level. Even though he makes stuff up, he hides it in there amongst real science. So it's very difficult for the lay person to disentangle the fiction from the science in his books. So I think that's the danger of State of Fear, is that it will give many readers totally the wrong impression about the truth.
In the late 2000s, one of the conservative Republican senators on a committee made it required reading for everyone
Wow.
to talk about, well, obviously, global climate change is just it's a passion moment for people that want a certain agenda.
Yes.
Versus, no, we've been looking at the science, and the science says things are changing, and the science isn't perfect and it's being developed, but it still says things are changing.
Yeah. And the more data we have, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two films that I could think of that we could have looked at, Day After Tomorrow,
Yes.
which is about global cooling.
Yeah.
Which seems a bit unfortunate, given that we tend to think in terms of the planet heating up. But the other one is that documentary with Al Gore. What was that called?
An Inconvenient Truth.
Inconvenient Truth, yes. Now that would have been a bit dull for us because it's not science fiction, but it's a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Larry Niven and Jerry Purnell did a long collaboration in books together. And one of the one-off books from that their work together is Fallen Angels. And it posits something kind of like the global cooling scenario, where the Earth was supposed to be in a cooling phase because of interstellar climate, but greenhouse gases were keeping it warm. And so when the green-based politicians got rid of all of the greenhouse gases, then it went through rapid cooling and an ice age happens. And all the sane people had been out on a space station, and Fallen Angels is about one of them who accidentally crash lands on the Earth and needs to get off the Earth before he's discovered. And
Okay.
yeah, it's a love letter to science fiction fandom. So it's an interesting book that way.
Now, would you like a climate change quiz?
Yes, I'd like a climate change quiz. Is it a science fiction climate change quiz
Oh, yes.
or just climate change?
It is a science fiction quiz. So this is one that I've created myself, but I was inspired by one article, which is from NPR. And it was an article called These Cli-Fi Classics Are Cautionary Tales for Today. And it's an article by Jason Heller. So I've basically taken some of the things that are delivered in that article and I've reverse engineered a quiz from it. Some of these questions are really easy. Some of them are quite difficult.
Okay.
We'll see how we go. There are 10 questions in total. Question 1. What is the term Cli-Fi short for?
Climate fiction.
Yeah, climate fiction or climate change fiction, it says here. Question 2. And this one makes me laugh because this is very similar to something you said to me in the last episode, I think. I think it was in a quiz,
Okay.
or maybe it was an episode before, but I thought I'd put this one in. Question 2. Which classic science fiction novel could be regarded as an early example of climate fiction because its desert world is shaped by environmental pressures?
That be Dune?
Yes. And for some of these, I've got hints that I've written down as well. And for that one, I wrote sandworms.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, question 3. A British author has sometimes been referred to as the godfather of Cli-Fi. He was the author of The Crystal World and also of many other books, including the autobiographical Empire of the Sun. Who is he?
Is that Brian Aldiss?
No, the other one.
Crystal House, Empire of the Sun.
The Crystal World.
Crystal World.
Yeah.
I don't recognize that.
It's J.G. Ballard.
Oh, yeah. I have a YouTube video that's on my to watch list, which is He Knew It Was Coming.
Yes.
That's the title of it.
Yes.
So if I'd watched that, I would know.
You would. They tend to be global catastrophes like floods and everything turns into crystal. It's sort of catastrophes in the John Wyndham mould, but taken to extremes, and usually they are totally environmental catastrophes, things that we have no hope of ever fighting or finding a way out of. The next question is about J.G. Ballard as well, but even if you don't know the book in question, you may be able to get this one. Which 1962 novel by J.G. Ballard imagines a future Earth transformed into a vast tropical lagoon after global temperatures rise?
I don't know that one.
Okay. My hint would have been that the title describes what has happened to the planet, and the title is The Drowned World. Question 5. In Paolo Bacigalupi's The Water Knife, which essential natural resource has become so scarce that it fuels conflict?
Water.
Yes, correct. That was one of the easy ones, even if you don't know the book.
Yes.
Question 6. In Ursula Le Guin's The Lathe of Heaven, what unusual ability does the protagonist, George Orr, possess?
His dreams become reality.
That's right. Question 7. In Brian Aldiss's Hothouse, what dramatic astronomical change has transformed the Earth into a tropical world?
The sun got hotter.
Not quite. Would you like another go? I'll give you a hint. It does involve the positions of the sun and the Earth, and the moon as well, actually.
So the Earth moved closer to the sun?
No. What happens to planets eventually? They're spinning on their own axis and they're going around the sun. Eventually, what will happen to those planets?
Well, one eventuality is the sun goes through its life change and becomes a red giant and consumes the Earth. But that's different from what you're describing there.
Yeah. Okay, what happened to the moon? In real life, what has happened to the moon?
The moon is slowly moving away from the Earth.
It is? Is it doing anything else?
I don't know.
Okay. I was hoping you'd get this one. Eventually, the moon has settled into a position so that it's always facing the Earth in the same way.
Oh, it's tidally locked.
Tidally locked, that's it, yeah. So the same would happen eventually with the Earth and the Sun, that the Earth would become tidally locked, so that one side of the Earth would be facing the Sun. And that's what happens in Hothouse. The Earth has become tidally locked, so it becomes superheated. Question 8. In The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, what is the long-term solution to humanity's climate crisis? What do they do to escape it?
I've never read that. I'm going to say they move underground.
Oh, they should have done. But no, they leave the Earth. The science fiction classic idea of just let's go somewhere else then. Okay, here's another one where now I haven't read either of these books, but I think you can get these just by the way I've worded the question. The Ice Schooner by Michael Moorcock and Ice by Anna Kavan both depict severe global cooling triggered by the same underlying human-caused catastrophe. What is that cause?
It's probably nuclear war.
Yes, exactly that, yeah. A callback to the day the Earth caught fire, in a way. Okay, now here's another one, which, again, you may not know the book, but you may be able to get it from knowledge of geography. In Jenny Fagan's novel The Sunlight Pilgrims, a permanent winter hits the UK, and a massive iceberg floats south from the Arctic, threatening the northernmost nation of Great Britain. What is the northernmost nation of Great Britain?
Is that North Ireland?
No, I'll give you a clue. Would you like a clue?
Yes, please.
The capital of the nation in question is Edinburgh.
That would be Scotland.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So, according to my calculations, you got 7 correct. So, well done.
Thank you. Thank you. And obviously, I need to go read some Octavia Butler.
Well, yeah, we all do. Everyone does. And finally, past, present, and future things. I have a past item, which is every now and again you pick up a book that you think, oh, I should have read this years ago. And this one came in front of me simply because I'm in a book group and this has been nominated as next month's book for the book group. But I realised I've never read it, so I thought, I better read this. So it's Down Below Station by C.J. Cherryh. I don't know if you know that one.
I do. I think I have that one on my Nook.
Somehow, as I say, never read it until now. I was quite surprised when I started reading it that it has a very long exposition chapter, which is a kind of a future history that establishes the world for you at the beginning. I wasn't really expecting that. I thought we'd go straight into the action, but there's quite a bit of exposition in there. But that's the past item that I am currently dipping into. And, I've got a present item here. I see that Isabel Kim's debut novel is out, and it's called Sublimation. You may remember we've read a couple of her stories when we've done the Hugo nominees.
Yes.
This is part of the blurb for her book, Sublimation. It says, when people cross borders, they don't just leave memories behind. One version of them stays at home, and the other departs, free to create a new life. Only when the two touch skin can the instances be reunited. So I thought, that sounds quite a hook there for a story.
Yeah.
So I look forward to reading that one. Have you got any past, present, or future things?
I do. I have one present thing just for this time. And it's an award I've mentioned in the past a few times. The Cordwainer Smith Rediscovery Award, which honors underread science fiction and fantasy authors with the intention of drawing renewed attention to the winners, has announced its 2026 winner, and it's Suzette Hayden Elgin. And she is probably best known as the founder of the Science Fiction Poetry Association.
Yes.
I'm not a huge poetry fan myself, but she also wrote a bunch of regular short stories and novels, and she's particularly known for her linguistic development because that was her day job. She was a linguist.
Okay. Very good. Very good. I've got another present item here, actually. There's a TV series, a new series on BBC, and it's called Anne Droid. And I'd just seen the first episode, and I think it's quite funny. It stars Diane Morgan, who is probably best known as Philomena Kunk, who's all over the internet with her stupid observations on life.
Yes.
And she plays this robot android, and it's quite good. It's, in science fiction terms, it's really just covering familiar territory of what it's like to have a robot around the house to help you. and all of that, but it's nicely done and worth looking out for. So, Android. And the last thing, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is back for its final season. I haven't seen any yet, but it's just started this week.
Yeah, it seems... Is it the only Star Trek series that did not go 6 or 7 seasons?
In recent times, yeah. There have been others. I think Enterprise only ran for 4 years or thereabouts. But yeah, we're used to things running a bit longer. And this one's been sort of cut short in its prime. But I imagine it's because the main cast have other fish to fry. From the outset, they cast people who were quite well known.
Yeah. Yeah, the other statistic that's sticking in my head is I think this is the first time in 31 years where there is not a new Trek work in development.
Yes. I've watched some of... Oh, what's it called?
Below Decks?
No, the most recent live-action one. Starfleet Academy. It's a bit cringy. The 2 episodes I've seen so far have just about redeemed themselves by the end of the episode, but in getting to the end of the episode, they've gone through some very cringy stuff, because essentially it's a high school drama is what they've created. And I was going to say it's not aimed at people like me, but I don't know who it is aimed at.
Well, given that they canceled it, I don't think it was aimed at... Or, yeah, maybe it was misaimed.
Yeah.
Maybe this is my own personal axe to grind. But personally, I feel like the further they have drifted from Roddenberry's original design for the universe of Star Trek, the worse things have gotten.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I want my science fiction to be an escape from the constraints of the current world rather than a spin on the current world with science fiction layered on top of it.
One of the other things that I find very irritating about Starfleet Academy is it's not just 300 years in the future, which the original Star Trek was. It's set in the same universe as Discovery. And in Discovery, I don't know if you remember this, but that was set a couple of 100 years in the future. And then they leapt like 1,000 years into the future because the producers were fed up of trying to make it fit with existing Star Trek. So they said, oh, damn this. Let's just jump forward another 1,000 years or whatever it is. And then we can do whatever we like. So that's what they did. And now this one is a spin-off from that. So this is also set many years into the future. And yet they've got this Starfleet Academy and it's modelled exactly like an American university or a high school in some instances. So it's saying that no matter how things will change over the next 1,000 years, the American model of universities is going to be the one that wins out across the galaxy. No, there's going to be better ways of educating people. But hey-ho.
Well, we'll see what they do with it.
You got any more?
No, I've been somewhat distracted. I've mentioned in the past that I've been working on a disc golf trivia game, and the crowdfunding for that launches next week. So,
and I mentioned to you the other day that I actually seen a disc golf course in Wales. Just stumbled across it. Didn't expect to see one, and so I didn't have a frisbee with me. And there it was on this National Trust property in Wales. I think we're done, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
And what a great thing to be doing on a hot day, discussing hot films, but not in the good sense.
No, and for you, was it kind of like eating hot and spicy food in hot weather where the additional sweat and stuff helps you cool down? Or did the intensity of the discussion kind of amp things up and make it worse?
I think watching the films made me hot under the collar. Maybe we should have watched The Day After Tomorrow. Maybe we needed the cooling effect of that film.
Maybe. Although the part where they start burning books from the library always makes me upset. Thanks for listening.
We're Phil Nichols and Colin Kusky.
Our music is from Purple Planet at purpleplanet.com.
Please visit our website at 101sf.blogspot.com,
where you can support us by buying us a coffee.
And you can find us on Facebook and Blue Sky. So see you next time.